Raise your hand if you want your nails to look perfect all the time. Me too. I'm Sarah Gibson Tuttle from Olive & June, and this is exactly why we created the Mani system. We wanted to make it possible for everyone everywhere to give themselves a beautiful manicure at home. With our tools and our long-lasting polish, each manicure with our Mani system comes out to just $2. That's right, $2. No more $30, $40, $50 manis that you get at a salon and they take hours. Now you can paint your nails on your time and love them more than ever. And by the way, when people ask, who did your nails, where did you get them done? You're going to proudly say, I did them myself. Get 20% off your first Mani system with code PERFECTMANI20 at oliveandjune.com/PERFECTMANI20. That's code PERFECTMANI20 for 20% off at oliveandjune.com/PERFECTMANI20.
Popsicles, sprinklers, a cool breeze. Talk about refreshing. You know what else is refreshing this summer? A brand new phone with Verizon. Yep, get a new phone on any plan with Select Phone Trade-in and My Plan. And lock down a low price for 3 years on any plan with My Plan. This is a deal for everyone, whether you're a new or existing customer. Swing by Verizon today for our best phone deals. 3-year price guarantee applies to then current base monthly rate only. Additional terms and conditions apply for all offers.
Why choose a Sleep Number smart bed?
Can I make my site softer?
Can I make my site firmer?
Can we sleep cooler?
Sleep Number does that. Cools up to 8 times faster and lets you choose your ideal comfort on either side. Your Sleep Number setting. Get early access to Sleep Number's biggest sale of the year. 25% off the i8 bed, our most popular. Plus free home delivery. Limited time. All Sleep Number smart beds offer temperature solutions for your best sleep. Check it out at a Sleep Number store or sleepnumber.com today.
Super real.
I just remember putting on the gear, the face mask, and you kind of push the doorway and this wave of heat comes just like in your face. And so like dust and feathers, and you're kind of just closing your eyes, getting feathers in your eyes, but like to the extreme. And so I just remember putting my hand down and touched what it like appeared to be like feces, and just wiping it on my leg. As I'm walking up, my heart's kind of pounding because I hear this the thumb. And what I really first noticed was there was like a head of this chicken, and it appeared to be like stuck to the crate. And then I kind of looked around and I saw more body parts, but I just remember that first visual, and then kind of just being stunned. It was really hard to see, obviously, and not really what I expected, but I don't know what I could have expected.
Hey, I'm Julian Morgans, and you're listening to What It Was Like, the show that asks people who have lived through big, dramatic events what it was like. Hey, before we get into this episode, I just want to be upfront. I eat meat. I eat meat all the time. In fact, for lunch today, I had a sandwich and it was full of prosciutto, and it was delicious. And I'm telling you this because I want to assure you that this episode is not about telling you what to do. Personally, I hate being told what to do, and I particularly hate getting guilt-tripped for enjoying food that my grandmother used to cook with her own fair hands. So I promise, I swear, this episode, we're not going to guilt-trip you. That's not what this is. However, I do think that if we eat meat, and I do, then we should at least be willing to look at where it comes from. I just think it's the more honorable approach. It's like better manners or something. But having said that, until recently, I wasn't willing to know either. What's up with that? You know, that's kind of weird. It's the human capacity for compartmentalization is just, it's so intense. Because, I mean, in my own personal case, I knew that the meat industry would be terrifying if I learned about it. So I just deliberately looked away for years and years. And I think that's really common. I think we all do that. I think if you ask the average person on the street, hey, tell me, do you think that the meat industry is cruel or pretty nice? Or what do you think? They'd be like, yeah, it's cruel as hell, but I don't want to know about it. Don't tell me about it. I'm out of here. And I just think that's a really normal way that we all live. But I think that's kind of weird, right? It's one of the few instances where that psychology is really implemented. For example, if there was lead in the drinking water, we would all demand answers. We'd want to know how it got there and how much was it and how long it's been there, and we'd all want the answers. Or if there was a predator employed at a local school near where you lived, you'd want every detail. But this massive machine of life and death that exists in every city in the Western world, we don't want to know about it. We look away and we go and get a burger. So I was thinking about all this a few years ago, and I started to feel uncomfortable just about my own cowardice. I think I pride myself on being able to hear any story, to face any truth, whether I like it or not. So I read this book about modern factory farming. Some of you might know eating animals. Anyway, what shocked me, it wasn't how the animals die. Like, animals die, you die, I die, we all die, but it's how they live. So I'll keep this short, but factory farm animals like pigs and chickens, they're all genetically engineered to grow super fast. And then they spend their short little lives in these filthy, windowless sheds, and they're kept alive with antibiotics because basically those kinds of conditions, you can't survive them without antibiotics. And then they all get slaughtered, basically as children. They're like 6 months old, en masse by underpaid migrant workers in giant facilities. And that's what I learned. And yet, a couple of years later, here I am eating meat again because I'm still very good at compartmentalization. I know the horror, and yet I had a prosciutto sandwich for lunch. But I'm curious, why do some people switch? And how can I switch? Because honestly, I don't want to eat meat anymore. So today, I'm speaking to someone from the meat industry who became a vegan. His name's David Magna. And what I like about David is that he gets it. He didn't grow up as some hippie who's never tasted bacon. He's a third-generation meat worker, actually a safety supervisor in Canadian abattoirs where he worked for decades, until finally, a couple of years ago, he had a crisis of conscience and he became a vegan. And I want to know why. David, like, what happened to you? What was the breaking point? What was the catalyst? And what can his story tell us about the nature of beliefs, but also just about how the meat industry works? So if you're curious too, and if you've been enjoying this show because, like me, you pride yourself on unbridled curiosity, then come along. I'll hold your hand and we'll lift the lid together and let's hear about David's journey. Oh, and just before I finish this intro bit, for subscribers this week, there's a bonus episode where I chat with my old boss, like my old boss before I started producing podcasts and ran my own business, Super Real. And I actually briefly worked making content at this engineering firm. And the engineering firm specialized in designing slaughterhouses, of all things. And this guy, my old boss, he's seen the meat industry expand over decades, and he's kind of got the inside scoop about how they're implementing technology to scale up and how this whole thing's turned into this multi-billion-dollar juggernaut. And he's got some heart as well. So I think it's a really interesting conversation from someone who's like on the money end of the meat industry. Anyway, that's on the bonus episode. Let's return to this episode, the regular episode that you're listening to right now, and I hope you enjoy my conversation with David Magna. David, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for being with me. Let's start off talking about your upbringing in Toronto. For anyone who's come into this to have a listen, very bravely, perhaps, like you're just a regular guy in Canada with a regular childhood. You know, you're growing up eating bacon in the morning and playing hockey at night, and and I guess the other part of this is that your family, you know, the family income was derived from slaughterhouses, you know, right? Like your dad and your grandfather both worked in slaughterhouses.
Yeah, so it was my grandparents, my aunt, my uncle, my mom. My grandfather eventually became an inspector for the Canadian government. My uncle followed suit, and then I followed on the coattails of that. Yeah. Wow.
So there's a lot of like proud lineage there, right?
Yeah. I mean, like, look, my grandparents moved here. They wanted a better life. They had that opportunity. It was either California or Ontario. I could have maybe been a surfer dude, but grew up playing hockey, and like I got no complaints. And like you said, just a regular kind of typical childhood, you know, go to the rink, go play baseball. and, go through the typical kind of things. And like you were saying, just the typical meals that everybody would have. Yeah.
And was there some pressure for you to sort of follow the family business? Was your dad like, David, I work in a slaughterhouse. You shall also work in a slaughterhouse.
Yeah, so my dad actually didn't work in the slaughterhouse, but he was sort of instrumental as to why my mom worked in the slaughterhouse. And obviously, like, I spent a lot of time with my grandparents. I kind of grew up in that culture, so I didn't have a lot of ambition growing up.
Like the sort of Portuguese culture.
Well, like even in the animal agriculture culture, I would say. So my grandparents would have pool parties and they would invite the inspectors and all the employees. So they would come all over, and I kind of grew up with the kids. And so I think the writing was sort of on the wall. I befriended, one of the other inspector's son. We would go over for barbecues and stuff like that. And I didn't have a lot of ambition growing up, but my grandfather always instilled in me, government job, pension, great benefits, all these things. So in my mind, it was a big person job. I did all the little person jobs, or the less career type jobs, and I always saw that as someone I looked up to. So I followed suit for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And when you say inspector, like what sort of inspectors are we describing here?
Yeah, so I put on many hats throughout my career. So I worked for the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. Much like any federal regulated body, my role was to inspect slaughterhouses, import-export facilities. I did fish inspection. So the role just really entangled around food safety. So things like temperature controls, formulation checks, just making sure the animals were somewhat killed properly. I use that lightly. And so, yeah, I mean, I saw a lot of things going into that I never really realized that what I was getting into. But I mean, I can play the naive card all I want, but it was very instrumental into probably the type of person I am today. So.
Sure. Okay. And so your grandfather had the same job, basically. He was also an inspector.
Yeah. So he worked on the kill floor as an employee. So he did kill animals, and he saw that the inspectors had a much nicer job as far as like, they're not doing the killing, and there's a bit of trauma associated with that. So he made it his mission to learn English, and he befriended the inspectors, and then he ultimately got a job as an inspector. And I think he worked about 15 years for the Canadian government.
Okay. And so you said before that you didn't have a lot of ambition as a teenager. So was your grandfather the one who was kind of like, hey, look, you can do this job. Here's a leg up.
Yeah, absolutely. He, again, instilled these sort of values in me, and where, he had the 2 cars, he had the house, he had the pool, the perfect lawn. And so like, it was something to emulate, just seeing how he carried himself. He was proud to move to Canada and start a life there and maybe make a difference. So that's what he thought he was doing at the time. And yeah, for sure, I envied that, and I thought, I want to be like him.
Okay. When you were a young man, like early 20s, what was your opinion of like vegetarianism, veganism, that scene?
Yeah. It's a great question. And I reflect back often, and I honestly, I didn't know. I never heard of vegetarian or veganism. It just wasn't a thing when I was growing up. I never thought of it. I never heard of it. I never contemplated it. I thought it was just a diet, and maybe there was a reason why, maybe an underlying health issue or something like that. Truly, I don't really recall a time where I thought, oh, I'm eating an animal. I just saw it as food. And I thought it was a must, the people you trust tell you it's something you have to do. It's part of your tradition, culture, and it's like obviously for your health. And so I never contemplated these things. I wouldn't say I was the brightest growing up. Maybe times haven't changed a bit, but I just never even really grasped that or thought about these things until later on when I started working in the agency that I did.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so you took the job, right? He hooked you up with an interview, I guess.
Yeah.
Guess you aced it. And do you remember your first day on the job?
Absolutely. And I remember it vividly. And if you talk to people that I have talked to, former workers and stuff like that, these are the things that the times that people remember as their first time walking into the places. And I mean, if I can paint a picture for you.
Yeah, please take me through it.
Yeah. So my first day, I knew something was coming that I hadn't seen before. And so, the tour of the plant that I was working at is a chicken slaughterhouse, and just sort of walking around the tour, and the last place, of course, is the live kill and the receiving area. And so I just remember them saying, okay, put this on, get ready to go. You're going to see some things. And
did they said that? So
yeah,
like industry insiders were like, this is, you're going to see some shit. They knew that?
Yeah, like the inspectors there had been, I think the closest guy my senior, I was pretty young when I was an inspector. I started when I was 19. And so the next closest guy was maybe 10, 15 years my senior. And so they were like, just so you know, it's going to be a bit much, but stay with it. You'll be fine. And I just remember putting on the gear, the face mask, and I was trying to catch up. I couldn't get these gloves on in time. And there's this doorway, and you kind of push the doorway, and this wave of heat comes just like in your face. And
was it hot?
It was really hot, like dust and feathers, and you're kind of just closing your eyes, getting feathers in your eyes, if you can imagine like dusting somewhere, but like to the extreme. And so I just remember putting my hand down and touched what it like appeared to be like feces, like shit, and just wiping it on my leg. And then as I'm walking up, my heart's kind of pounding because I hear this the thumb, the thumb, the thumb, the thumb, and I kind of look over and there's this truck. And what I really first noticed was, and I wasn't sure if I was seeing it properly, was there was like a head of this chicken, and it appeared to be like stuck to the crate. And I started in December, so it's really cold. It was really cold that day. And so as I got closer, walking down these stairs and hearing the thumping and hearing like just noise from the chickens, you can hear them like chirp very lightly, but you could hear it. And I saw this head that was frozen to a crate, and then I kind of looked around and I saw more body parts, or more chickens that were, maybe even some were still alive at the time. I can't recall, but I just remember that first visual, and then kind of just being stunned from what I saw, and but trying to keep up with the inspector that was showing me around. So I kind of looked, and there was ice on the truck, and it was really hard to see, obviously, and not really what I expected, but I don't know what I could have expected.
Yeah, well, I mean, what did you expect? Because I guess if that had been me, even at 19, I'd have probably had a moment where I looked myself in the mirror that morning and been like, right, you got to psych yourself up. Like, I don't know anything about slaughterhouses. I've never been in one, never had anything to do with it, but I know enough to know that it's hell. I know that.
Yeah. I think just being young and naive and not really like doing my homework onto what I was looking into. And yeah, man, like I turn my head and, I see these crates being dropped down and see these, chickens, some hens jumping out, and see these people in this dark room hanging these birds and feathers and feces and everything flying everywhere. And like, I was, I was torn because like emotionally I was like, what the hell is going on? But also all the thoughts of my grandfather helping me get the interview. I don't want to embarrass my family. Be a man, this is what has to happen. And this is, this is normal. This is what has to take place. And I can't just walk out on that first day, that first moment. So I got to suck it up. And I think that's kind of what played with me as I saw that. And, I could go on, but yeah, it was really obviously difficult. And yeah, it's hard to explain. Yeah.
No, I mean, like, go on. I mean,
yeah,
part of me's reluctant. Part of me's reluctant because I don't want this to turn into some sort of torture porn description. But then also, like, I reckon 99.9% of the people who are listening to this have eaten chicken nuggets in the last month or two. Yeah. So, like, I mean, tell us, David, where do these chicken nuggets come from?
Yeah.
What's the process?
Well, I think what's key is just knowing the process, and as long as you know and you're educated on it, at least right? Rather than just kind of blindly turning an eye and running away from it. I think then you can say, you've looked into it, you feel confident with your decisions, whether you choose or don't choose. And I'm not here to judge anyone. Like, I worked in a slaughterhouse, for many years, and saw many things that people will never, ever, that they couldn't imagine. Right. And exactly. I don't want to turn people off by saying it was, horrific, but, in a way it was. And so, yeah, I've seen quite awful things. These hens that are laying eggs, in the early 1900s, they'd be laying an egg, 12 to 16 eggs per year. Now they're up to 300 because they've been genetically engineered. And so it wreaks havoc on their system. And it's no wonder I saw limbs being, ripped off when they were being hung. And, just these.
What do you mean?
Sorry.
Can I ask what do you mean being hung? You don't mean being hung like hangman. You mean like...
yeah. So sorry. When I say hung, I mean their legs were being hung on shackles. And so sometimes they'd be hung by their wings if they were missing a leg or something. But yeah, this would be hung on shackles, metal shackles. And so if you can get that, I mean, it's a hard description. And again, I don't want to, scare anybody, but it's just the reality, right?
Hey, it's time for a quick ad break here, but please don't go anywhere. Stick around because we'll be right back.
Popsicles, sprinklers, a cool breeze. Talk about refreshing. You know what else is refreshing this summer? A brand new phone with Verizon. Yep, get a new phone on any plan with Select Phone Trade-in and My Plan. And lock down a low price for 3 years on any plan with My Plan. This is a deal for everyone, whether you're a new or existing customer. Swing by Verizon today for our best phone deals. 3-year price guarantee applies to then current base monthly rate only. Additional terms and conditions apply for all offers.
Why choose a Sleep Number smart bed?
Can I make my site softer?
Can I make my site firmer?
Can we sleep cooler?
Sleep Number does that. Cools up to 8 times faster and lets you choose your ideal comfort on either side. Your Sleep Number setting. Get early access to Sleep Number's biggest sale of the year. 25% off the i8 bed, our most popular. Plus free home delivery. Limited time. All Sleep Number smart beds offer temperature solutions for your best sleep. Check it out at a Sleep Number store or sleepnumber.com today.
Raise your hand if you want your nails to look perfect all the time. Me too. I'm Sarah Gibson Tuttle from Olive & June, and this is exactly why we created the Manny system. We wanted to make it possible for everyone everywhere to give themselves a beautiful manicure at home. With our tools and our long-lasting polish, each manicure with our Manny system comes out to just $2. That's right, $2. No more $30, $40, $50 manis that you get at a salon and they take hours. Now you can paint your nails on your time and love them more than ever. And by the way, when people ask, who did your nails? Where did you get them done? You're going to proudly say, I did them myself. Get 20% off your first Manny system with code PERFECTManny20 at oliveandjune.com/PerfectManny20. That's code PERFECTManny20 for 20% off at oliveandjune.com/PerfectManny20.
Okay, so
Yeah.
this is the sort of like the first stage of the conveyor belt experience. They get just hung on these things by their legs.
Yes. And now even furthermore, some chickens are put into the gas instead of being electrocuted. So what happens is they stun them, their heads in a water bath as after they're being hung, and so they'll go down a conveyor belt, and that will stun them, and then a mechanical knife will cut them unless if it misses, and then someone else will slit their neck, and then they'll go into a skull tank.
Okay, and the water bath is electrified. Is that right?
Yeah, so they call it a stunning method. For me, I think it's more about like the stunning of the animals. I think it's more so that the birds don't freak out and maybe an employee gets hurt. I think that's more or less why they would do that. I don't think it's. I mean, it could be for a reason of stunning them before killing them, but I was told that it was it was the best way to do it before they were killed, because they can't legally do drugs because that could leak into the flesh and then, someone could eat that. So this is the best method that the industry's come up with. And I could get into the gas chambers that they use for pigs. So that's a CO2 gas chamber, and the majority of pigs are put into these chambers. It knocks them out most of the time, but it's a really hard process for that minute or less than a minute that they're in there. I mean, it's standard industry practice. I think it's good to know. Good to know what you're paying for, but I understand certain audiences that you want to be respectful, and you want to talk to them at their level, and I found that usually works. I mean, for about 80% of people, I think talking just level to people one-on-one like we are today, it's a much better process for everybody. But
yeah, much better. You know that joke about like, how do you know if there's a vegan in the room?
Yeah,
because they'll fucking tell you. Like,
yeah,
I think that's the cliche that makes people lean back or just exit the room.
Yes.
So I think a empathetic kind of soft conversation is always the best method.
Yeah.
All right, so let's just go back to this sort of vision of you as a 19-year-old going into a slaughterhouse for the first time.
Sure.
So I just want to sort of complete your first day on the job. How did you feel by the end of that day?
Well, I didn't realize the smell was going to be so bad. It was like literally in my nose, and like that's all I smelt. And I get into my car and I'm like, my car is going to smell like this. And
what was the smell?
I don't know if you've ever been to a farm, but essentially feces and urine, and it's really hard to explain. Just really like awful. I think I was smoking at the time, so I would smoke to mask that, I think. And you go home in the shower and you rinse off as much as you can, but it kind of sticks with you.
Yeah. Look, I'm just so interested in your headspace at that time, because you're a vegan now. You're a sort of public facing. Your handle on your Gmail account is like the 40-year-old vegan, which is very clever, by the way. Like this is your identity. But at that time, you're just a regular guy. So I'm so curious about this transformation. You just go to bed that night and you're like, oh, well, got work again tomorrow. I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, were you unfazed at the start?
Yeah, not unfazed. I would say that those first few days were very difficult. And I think what I saw, I think I had the white knight kind of thing where I wanted to make sure that everything was being done proper within the confines of the law. I'd be angry quite often when I would go there. So if I saw an employee, say, dropping a crate from very far, I would go and I would be like, what are you doing? I mean, it was my job, but a lot of inspectors, they just kind of give up because you try to bring things to the attention of your supervisor or something like that, and it kind of just goes on deaf ears. And so I think I was just trying to make the process better. I've sort of always been like that. Try to make things like a little bit better for anyone, even the employees. So I think that's the lens I had. I didn't really put more thought into it. I think maybe that could have been a trauma response, but I'm not sure. And so I did bury that for a long time. As I mentioned, I got really sick for a while, and so I was off for a year and a half. I had developed E. coli and salmonella, or sorry, Campylobacter, and what happened to me was like some people really react bad and some people don't. Most workers will contract those pathogens. I ended up with a blood clot in my lung, and I had to take off some time. So it was a really difficult time for a couple of years there. Blood work every day, needles in the stomach, and yeah, it was awful. It was really awful. And again, like I just going back, I felt this urge to just make things better, to make sure that people were wearing their masks properly, that maybe ventilation procedures could be a bit better, and stuff like that. That was sort of the frame of mind that I had. And then after that, I was suffering with respiratory problems. A number of people will at those places. And so they moved me out because I couldn't breathe. I went to my doctor, and, I had some asthma, and they moved me outside of that facility. And I worked in sort of like the processing side of things and imports and exports, where you're not necessarily on the kill floor, but you're there when they're, say, battering like burgers and stuff like that.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
So how long did you work as an inspector for?
So I worked for about 15 and a half years for the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. In slaughterhouses, it was about 6 to 8 years. Again, I had health issues a couple times, so I was off for probably about 3 years in between that. And then I worked in processing, and then I worked in a place called Animal Health. And that's where things really, really changed for me.
Okay. And so in that time, you're seeing slaughterhouses all over Canada. I'm guessing you're traveling lots. I don't know if it's possible, but could you just give us a quick rundown on like how the system works? Like, are there just like a couple of really giant slaughterhouses that handle the entire country, or is it all spread out? Or like, just give us a bit of a bird's eye view.
Yeah, you're gonna have some smaller places. Depends if they're provincially regulated or federally. That all has to do with trade. So the places I worked were the federally registered establishments, so they were a lot bigger. So, for example, the place I worked at, Maple Lodge Farm, predominantly for many of my years, they killed up to 500,000 chickens a day. So a day.
That is a big day.
Yeah,
I think
that's a lot. And so there'd be, I think it was 180 birds per minute, 3 birds per second when I left.
Were these places running 24 hours a day?
So it'd be two shifts. So about 250 per shift. Yeah.
Okay. But they don't operate at night, or is it just a sort of continuous process?
They're doing maintenance and stuff at night, so not the kill operation. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Geez, the scale of that is crazy. And that's just one facility.
That's one. And also, so part of my training involved me going to the pig and the cow slaughter facilities. And also there was a strike, so I was working at the cow facilities, and I think I had more of a visceral reaction when I saw the cows, possibly because the first cows I saw go through that process was it was really hard to see. Yeah, really hard. So if you want me to talk about it.
Yeah, I don't know why, but I'm feeling brave. Tell me.
Yeah, so I again, it was sort of similar. You're just waiting to go out onto this kill floor. You get the tour, and the last spot you go is where the cows are lining up, and then I was walked up to the process to see where the cows are getting shot. So it's a captive bolt gun they use, and they aim for a certain spot in the skull, and it kind of stuns them for a bit, and they go down a conveyor belt, and there's these chains that will hook up their feet, and then they'll go up, and there'll be somebody with a machete, and they'll start slicing at their neck, and yeah, just blood comes out. And what's really, there's a few parts to like this area is seeing, like, they had automatic skin, like hide rollers that just really took off the skin. So you would see that happen. And when they were cut down the middle, as after the blood was out, their entire innards would just fall onto this massive conveyor belt, and that was just so wow to see. And yeah, I remember seeing that the first cow that I saw get stunned. You know, they were flailing around, and then I looked into one of the bins and I saw a calf, and I didn't realize at the time, but you know, some of those cows are still pregnant while they're slaughtered. So yeah, just a lot to take in, and really one day I saw all of that, and then just seeing no skin on the skull and people cutting that. It was just, yeah, I called in sick the rest of the week. I didn't tell anybody. I just said that I was sick. You know, I mentally, I was feeling it. And, yeah, it was pretty awful to see, pretty hard to see.
I wonder how often, I mean, I guess they've got this training program. It's kind of like the military, you know, you're sort of just training up fresh recruits, and you've got no idea really psychologically who's going to stick around in this job and who's going to take the week off.
Right.
I wonder if they saw this a fair bit, if they were like, oh yeah, we've got another softie who's taking the week off, or if they were like, oh, that's unusual. That never happens. Well,
there is a high turnover rate, whether you're inspectors or whether you're, like, the first day on the job, people are looking for other jobs. You saw it all the time. People would be applying to different government jobs because you know, you want to stay in the government because then you can carry on your pension. And I think that was the incentive for government employees. But as far as the regular employees, those aren't, you know, it's no childhood dream to work up to grow in a slaughterhouse. It's generally roughly marginalized, racialized people. So immigrants, refugees, those are the people that are generally working these positions. Yeah. So it's a high turnover rate due to, because people become really ill. You know, people will hurt themselves, cut themselves. Sometimes, you know, those injuries add up. And often what's troubling to me is that they surround like these communities with, you know, similar culture or similar experiences like war, or you know, in the case where I worked at Maple Lodge, it was 60 or 80% Portuguese and 20% Filipinos that worked there, and they all knew each other, so they all knew each other's lives, and they would work through that experience together. But I felt like they were exploited, the workers, as well. Yeah.
And I don't know why I thought of this, but it seems interesting to me. I think there's this idea that when the animals are going into a slaughterhouse, they have no idea what's going to hit them, and therefore they're not stressed. You know, there's this idea that if they're on the truck, the animals are like, oh, we're just going to a different paddock. And then when they get to the slaughterhouse, they're like, yeah, we're just going to, I don't know, God knows. From what you saw, is that in any way true?
I think these animals they probably have more heightened senses than we do. I think they understand at that moment. You just look into their eyes, and I think they know. I think you know. Obviously,
why would they know? Do you reckon they sort of smell blood and they sort of smell death in the air?
I think so, you know, especially getting closer to the slaughterhouse. It's no picnic riding on these trucks either. Pigs, for example, some hens, probably chickens, and maybe some cows. That'll be the first time they're outside. The first time they smell fresh air. So all these senses are heightened, and if you can imagine, you know, they all have to go to the washroom on these trucks. They're scared, And, that's one of the telltale signs is you go up to one of these trucks, you're going to smell it from a mile away, just because it smells so bad. And, as you pull up closer to the kill floor, there's going to be blood. They're going to smell that. They're going to sense it. I can't tell you how many animals tried to turn the other way as far as when I went to the cow slaughterhouse, and I was only there for a limited time. They know what's going on, I think, anyways.
Oh, that's so sad.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but that detail there has really bummed me out.
Yeah.
I liked the idea that they were ignorant.
Yeah. Ignorance is bliss.
Yeah. My God. And it's just occurred to me that, I mean, you're sort of talking about how this industry leans so hard on immigrants and refugees. Like, there's this real hierarchy of consciousness that this industry leans on, which is like white people at the top, and then beneath that we've got immigrants, so we get them to do the worst jobs in the world. And then beneath that we've got animals who aren't even immigrants, they're just animals, so like eat them. There's this really clearly defined pyramid of consciousness. It's yuck. It's so yuck.
Yeah, it's almost like human supremacy at its finest. There's this thing called speciesism, where we view other animals as lesser than, or we view them as objects or entertainment or fashion and things like that. And I have seen a good amount of change. But, in the fur industry, for example, I think most people are agreeing that we shouldn't be wearing animals. A lot of people are coming to notice that zoos maybe not be the best place, maybe go visit a sanctuary. And yeah, animal testing, I think some countries are outright banning it. So I think there is a collective awakening. It's just, we've been told these things. We've been told this our whole lives. This is normal. This is what we've been doing. It's tradition, it's culture. And somehow we have to keep doing it. What gives me hope is I think people are starting to wake up to this reality.
Yeah. Yeah, I like to think so as well. But then I often see these stats around meat consumption. Meat's becoming more and more popular around the world. Developing nations are like, oh, we should have meat with every single meal, just like those fatties in the West. And that's depressing. That's not sustainable.
Like, obviously, yeah, with developing nations, they are going to be, eating more animal flesh. I think maybe the West is starting to shift a little bit, where we're taking seriously the risk of cancer. What gives me hope is, you see people changing from plant-based to plant-based milks, and you see a rise in plant-based options. Veganic and vertical farming are being talked about, precision fermentation. But yeah, you're right. I mean, it's devastating to see the numbers, the sheer amount of gluttony, I would call it, just not even a thought about it. And like, I don't know about you, when I grew up, it was more or less, we'd have like a little spot on our plate for animal products. It wasn't the main course, it was, you had your mix of vegetables and whatever. And now it's just dominating, and even people are taking it, even that, to the extreme as well.
Hey, this bit of music means it's time for an ad break, but please don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Popsicles, sprinklers, a cool breeze. Talk about refreshing. You know what else is refreshing this summer? A brand new phone with Verizon. Yep, get a new phone on any plan with Select Phone Trade-in and My Plan. And lock down a low price for 3 years on any plan with My Plan. This is a deal for everyone, whether you're a new or existing customer. Swing by Verizon today for our best phone deals. 3-year price guarantee applies to then current base monthly rate only. Additional terms and conditions apply for all offers.
This summer, Instacart is bringing back your favorites from 1999 with prices from 1999. That means 90s prices on juice pouches that ought to be respected, 90s prices on box mac and cheese, and 90s prices on ham, cheese, and cracker lunches. Enjoy all those throwbacks and more at throwback prices, only through Instacart. $4.72 maximum discount per $10 of eligible items. Limit one offer per order. Expires September 5th while supplies last. Discount based on CPI comparison.
So let's look at when your mind shifted, right? So you worked this job for a long time, and I know that you said you got sick a few times. It sounds like you were really sick as well.
Mm-hmm.
But was there a catalyst? Like, was there finally something that you saw or some sort of industry practice that you were like, just no, I'm done?
Yeah. Like I mentioned, I was working in the slaughterhouses for a while. Then I moved out and I was in processing. And there's a plant that I worked at for some time, and I saw some things that I didn't really agree with. I brought them to the attention of my supervisor, and my supervisor really didn't do a lot about it. So they kicked me out of this area, and basically they gave me 6 months to work. And I don't know if they did it on purpose, but they sent me to this investigation unit. So I worked in animal health. That was, that's what it was called. And yeah, the job entailed me looking at videos and photographs and inspector's notes of all the non-compliances. So I forgot to mention, like, one of my previous roles was to document the amount of chickens that were coming in that were dead. And then part of my job was to put their bodies in a garbage bag and bring them to a necropsy area or autopsy area, where the vet would literally cut them open in front of me and determine the cause of death.
Really?
Yeah. So these deaths were occurring in the summer and the winter, and so you kind of knew what the cause of death was, but for legal purposes they had to do that. And I only went to court 2 times in my 15 years, after documenting probably hundreds of cases of these. And so fast forward, I'm out of that environment, the slaughterhouse, it's kind of buried in me. And now I'm reviewing these files. And, one of the first files, and as I was reviewing the file, a lady who worked in that unit said, the previous people that have worked in this unit or that position, they don't even look at the pictures or the videos. They just look to make sure the inspector's notes are proper, and then they send it up the chain and they decide if it's going to go to court or not. So to be prosecuted under the federal regulations there. And I'm like, no, this is my job. Like, I've been hired to do this, and I'm not going to not do my job. And like, one of the first photos I saw was of it was awful. So it was a slaughterhouse truck, and it was really hard to see, but I could make out the shape of a calf, and the calf was completely covered in feces, and their head was smashed. And because the mother cow was beside them, also with their head sort of smashed. And what I think had happened, and what the inspector said had happened, was that they must have been trampled upon while she was giving birth. And so I just, in that moment, in those moments, I was really struggling mentally. My partner at the time, I told her, I just don't want to work in this job anymore. I can't do it. My mental health's breaking down. And I didn't really tell her the things I saw, just because I don't like putting that trauma on people. Even right now, I feel uncomfortable doing it, just because I don't want people to have to go through what I've been through. And yeah, it was awful. And, she had said, well, why don't we try veg? And I had some ideas on that, because there was an inspector that was veg, maybe a couple that were. And I was like, yeah, like, I'm willing to try anything. And so I tried it a couple weeks later. I knew what happened with dairy and eggs. And I'm like, well, I'm fine. So I dropped the dairy and eggs. And, I was waiting for something bad to happen, because I've been told my whole life, you're going to lack this, you're going to miss this, something's going to happen. And guess what? I didn't die. And I felt fine. In fact, my childhood asthma kind of went away. And I was in shock. I was lost for a long time, just thinking, like I've been duped. Like, how could I be so naive? Like, I'm the dumbest person in the room. And like, what, you worked in that, you profited off of that, you lived in that, and you saw this happen daily. And now you have, like, I was having night terrors. I still do, and flashbacks all the time. Yeah, like daily flashbacks. I see someone eating, I think of, I see a garbage bag, I think of, I see a truck, I think of, I could go on. And so, yeah, that was sort of the awakening, the start of the awakening. And I think, yeah, if anybody was in my position, they'd probably come to the same conclusion, probably a bit quicker than naive me. But yeah, that's sort of the start of it. Yeah.
Do you think you'd be a vegan if you hadn't gone through this experience?
It's a great question, Julian. I think of that all the time. I don't know. Maybe I think I'm just lucky. Maybe because I was so naive where I worked and all of that, maybe I would have just followed the crowd. I don't know. I think about it. I think I'm lucky that I had this awakening, but because of that luck, I feel obligated to share my story and tell people and yell it out to the world.
Yeah. Was anxiety and depression fairly well spread, fairly widely spread in these facilities?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was almost like a survival situation for, like, this lady I worked with, Maria, for example. She moved to Canada. English wasn't her native language. She had shoulder issues. She had just come off carpal tunnel surgery. She was going for her second carpal tunnel surgery. And I said to her, listen, Maria, you got to get out of here. You got to get a different job. It's killing you. And what she said was like, and it always sticks with me, is it doesn't matter about me. It just matters about my kids. I don't speak English. I can't get another job that pays this. And I work with everybody here. I know everybody here. And it's just so sad to see. And I saw that frequently. And if you look at the people that worked on the kill floor and the kill line, especially the backup killers, they like, you walk up to them, you say hello, and they're just kind of sitting there like this, like completely just not there. And I found myself in that situation as well. Maybe I didn't do the killing, but certainly seeing as much as I did affected me.
Yeah, because they're so sort of practiced in the art of compartmentalization that they've just detached themselves from reality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, what I'm sort of hearing, talking to you through all, I'm just thinking about, like, we're all being fed this information about how it's culture, it's for your health. It's tasty. I'd say it's objectively, meat's pretty tasty. Bacon is tasty.
Mm-hmm.
But the other stuff is kind of propaganda. And I'm guessing it just comes from a hugely profitable industry that just happens to be cashing in on this sort of these notions that we have around our mothers cooking and these real nebulous kind of tightly held beliefs. But I guess like, what can you tell us about this industry? Like are the executives in this industry as evil as I'm imagining, or as psychopathic as I'm imagining, or as detached, as apathetic as I'm imagining? How much money are they earning? Like, how many mansions do each of them have?
Well, I think it's probably a scale. There's probably people that really don't know. I personally know many people that still work in the industry, and a lot of them still have these beliefs. There's something called Plato's Cave. I think, what you're shown versus what the reality is. And we often try to show that as animal rights activists. And I do think there's a sense of, generational wealth that's really important to, say, farmers. They want to keep it in the family. They've gone to great lengths to use the government and subsidies to hold on to that generational wealth and put it in the family and keep that going. And I think there's a lot of cognitive dissonance that goes on the farm. often farmers aren't the one taking the lives, right? They're sending to slaughter, and most of the time they will probably never even see a slaughterhouse, so they can close their eyes off to what takes place and maybe not be culpable that way, but they can certainly earn a living. But it's even a hierarchy there, like these farmers, especially these co-ops. They're getting more wealthy, whereas there's some farmers that are really struggling, and they have to pay their dues, and they're not going to get to that same level. As far as like the bureaucracy is concerned, definitely, like we had an activist, Regan Russell. She was killed here after an ag gag law was passed. So for those of you who don't know, an ag gag bill is something that the agricultural industry tries to silence, sort of whistleblowing and what takes place.
We got similar stuff.
Yeah. And so that bill was passed by the Ministry of Agriculture. He's the head of it, Ernie Harmon. He's the head, and then his nephew's the critic opposite him, opposite party, and they're both cash crops and making money off the system. So of course they're going to pass this law, and so there's that part, and then as well as that person I was talking to you about, Regan. We went to the owner's house that day. So this is called Fearman Slaughterhouse, it's in Burlington, Ontario, but near Toronto, and they kill 10,000 pigs a day. And so, we demanded, that something be said by this, this really, 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 really rich person. And we drove up to his house, and if you can imagine the size of a massive slaughterhouse, his house was double the size of the slaughterhouse. He had tennis courts. He had two men at the gate telling us to stay off the property. And, of course, these guys are making so much money. They get subsidized as well, this Maple Leaf and these companies. So they know how to gamify the system.
Yeah. This guy with the tennis courts and the butlers at the front gate, did you ever get a comment from him?
No, he will never comment on what took place. And he's a billionaire. He owns several places. His son is an F1 car driver, and he didn't go up the ranks like maybe others did. And so Cargill's another one where you probably heard of Cargill. Called the worst company in the world by some.
Yeah, they're big.
Yeah, there's them, and Maple Leaf is the other one, and there's JBS and other places. So yeah, these are basically, some of them are mafia run, and they're unstoppable.
Who would have thought? Shocking that the meat industry goes hand in hand with corruption and all sorts of bad stuff. When you quit the business, was your grandfather still around, and did you have a conversation with him?
One thing I never did was tell him. I didn't have the courage to tell him because I thought it would break his heart or something like that. So, he would ask me how work's going, and I'd kind of just nod and walk away. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, David, this has been really interesting, and I got one last question for you, and that is. So anyone who's listening to this, if they've come this far in the journey, I reckon they're probably like, this is interesting. I might not have meat in my next meal. They might be thinking that. I just wanted to sort of hand you the mic. What sort of parting gift or parting wisdom would you like to leave people with?
So what I would say to anybody who's really interested in looking into these things, if you need motivation, watch Dominion the movie. It's on YouTube. There's Pignorant too as well. There's a bunch of documentaries that show you standard industry practice. If you can't watch those, I understand. And if you're really actually just looking for the meal portion and how to just try it, challenge22.com. They provide free meal kit advice. They'll walk you through any nutritional needs that you think you might be missing. Like a lot of people have this idea that you'd be missing protein. That's far from the case. And so they'll walk you through it. They have nutritionists on staff. They have dietitians on staff. And I don't know about you or in Australia, but here you have to pay quite a bit of money to just go to a dietitian, let alone have somebody who can critique a meal plan for you. And it's just 21 days, 22 days to break a habit. So try it for the 3 weeks. I don't think you're going to be missing anything, but I always want you to remember the why. Why am I doing this? There's an individual on the other side of that. So that would be my plug. And I really appreciate you having me on. If you have any questions, anybody, the 40-year-old vegan on Instagram, I'm on YouTube, I'm on TikTok, and come connect with me. I'd love to hear from you, and I can help you along the way. And always join communities as well. Join the Facebook groups, join the Instagram influencers or people in your community. You're always going to find people in your community. So
great. Well, thanks so much, David. This has been amazing.
Yeah, it's been great. Thanks for having me on.
Today's episode was produced by Rachel Tuffery. It was mixed by Jimmy Saunders, who also did our theme music. Our cover art is by Rich Akers. Ellie Dickey is our intern. And this whole thing has been a Super Real production.
Popsicles, sprinklers, a cool breeze. Talk about refreshing. You know what else is refreshing this summer? A brand new phone with Verizon. Yep, get a new phone on any plan with Select Phone Trade-in and My Plan. And lock down a low price for 3 years on any plan with My Plan. This is a deal for everyone, whether you're a new or existing customer. Swing by Verizon today for our best phone deals. 3-year price guarantee applies to then current base monthly rate only. Additional terms and conditions apply for all offers.
Hey, this is Jonathan Fields, host of the Good Life Project podcast. Boost Mobile reminds me of what I love, when someone reimagines what's possible. Offering reliable nationwide coverage backed by a 30-day money-back guarantee. While other carriers spend millions on flashy Super Bowl ads, Boost Mobile puts those dollars towards what matters more, delivering reliable nationwide coverage at prices that make you wonder why we've been paying so much. For just $25 a month, you get unlimited service that will never go up in price, not next year, not ever. And they're so confident you'll love it, they back it with a 30-day money-back guarantee, no questions asked. Want to see if Boost Mobile is right for you? Visit your nearest Boost Mobile store or boostmobile.com. Customers who cancel within 30 days of activation will have Boost service fees refunded, activation fees if applicable, and phone payments will not be refunded.